There is something ancient in the gaze of a horse, something that doesn't ask who you are, but feels you before you speak. They don't judge the way you walk into the world. They don't need your resume or your reputation. They only need your presence, and in return, they offer something most of us didn't even know we were missing: stillness, reflection, and the quiet kind of healing. This is not a fairy tale. This is science, soul, and centuries of shared evolution. In this journey, you'll discover why horses have become quiet partners in trauma therapy, how they read human emotion better than most people do, the neuroscience behind why standing next to a calm horse changes your brain, and what trust really looks like when words are taken away. This is the story of equine therapy. But more than that, it's the story of what happens when a human finally slows down long enough to be seen, felt, and understood by something wild, and yet completely accepting. Welcome to Horse Sense. Let's begin. It doesn't begin with a handshake. It begins with a breath, a moment, a pause, and something unseen moving between two beings. One human, one horse. You might be holding grief, or anger, or a weight so old you forgot what life felt like without it. But the horse knows, not in the way people know things, through words or explanations, but through energy, through the way you step forward or hold back, the way your eyes move, the way your chest expands when you try to look calm. You think you're hiding it, you smile politely, you put on your best "I'm fine" mask, but horses don't see the mask, they see the muscles behind it. They feel the tremble you thought no one noticed. They sense the shadow in your posture, and instead of running from it, they lean in, not to fix you, not to heal you with magic, but to acknowledge you, to say without speaking, "I see you. I feel you." The first touch is often accidental. A muzzle brushing your sleeve, a breath warming your hand. Sometimes it's a gaze so steady, so grounding, that you suddenly feel your chest soften for the first time in days. No judgment, no analysis, just pure presence, and something in you, something weary and waiting, starts to open, not because the horse did anything, but because for the first time, you didn't have to explain yourself to feel safe. It's this moment, well, the first touch, that begins the healing. Not because everything gets better right away, but because something begins to shift inside you and between you. You're not alone in your hurt anymore. There's someone beside you who doesn't need you to be okay, only honest, only present, and in that space, healing begins. A horse doesn't pretend. They don't smile when they're scared. They don't say "I'm fine" when they're falling apart. They don't fake interest, they don't flatter, and they don't manipulate. They are who they are every second, honest, immediate, present. And here's where the magic begins, because horses don't lie. They don't know how to live around lies either. When you show up, anxious, guarded, wounded, the horse feels it not as judgment, but as dissonance, something off, something not congruent. They can feel when your body says "I'm safe," but your heart is still running. And here's the lesson. They don't trust the mask, they wait for what's real, when your exterior aligns with your interior, when what you feel is what you show. That's when the horse relaxes, that's when the relationship begins. This is why equine therapy is so powerful for trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and emotional disconnection. Because horses don't lie. They don't know how to respond to false confidence, they respond to authenticity. And when they feel that in you, when your nervous system aligns with theirs, they lean in, they engage, they connect. It's not a dominance, it's not a control, it's trust, real trust. Earned not through commands or cleverness, but through transparency. Because with a horse you must come as you are, you can't trick them. And surprisingly, that's liberating. Because the part of you that's tired of pretending, that part finally exhales. There's a reason you feel calmer around horses. And it's not just the scenery or the silence or the way they move. It's biology. Your nervous system knows something that your mind can't always explain. You are in the presence of peace. Horses, by nature, are prey animals. That means they survive not by strength or aggression, but by awareness. Their nervous systems are highly tuned, sensitive, and responsive. They feel danger before it arrives. They sense shifts in energy, emotion, and attention like ripples in a pond. But here's what's remarkable. They're not just sensing danger, they're also sensing safety. And when a horse feels safe, their body reflects it. Their breath deepens. Their muscles soften, their eyes grow still. And you, standing near them, begin to mirror that. This is called co-regulation. It's a biological phenomenon where two nervous systems begin to align. When you're near a grounded horse, a horse who is calm, balanced, and present, your own body begins to follow suit. Your heart rate slows, your stress hormones drop, your breath deepens, you don't have to try, it just happens. Because the horse is not reacting to your fear, it's regulating it. This is why people with trauma often cry the first time a horse leans into them. Not because of words spoken, but because their body, for the first time in years, finally feels safe. Not mentally, but physiologically. Deep, instinctual, unspoken. And that's something most of us never get from other humans. We live in a world of dysregulation, of constant alerts, deadlines, noise, and reactivity. But a horse, a calm, grounded horse, reminds your body of something ancient, what peace feels like, what presence feels like, what safety feels like. You don't have to know the science, your body already does. And that's why, even without a word spoken, just standing near a horse can begin to change the way you feel, the way you breathe, and the way you heal. And the more time you spend near them, the more honest you become, not just with the horse, but with yourself. And that's when the healing deepens, when trust isn't just something between you and the horse, but something you carry back into the rest of your life. They don't talk, they don't ask follow-up questions, they don't offer advice or try to fix you, and yet they respond in a way more honest, more piercing, more accurate than most people ever will. Because horses, unlike humans, don't rely on words, they rely on energy, emotion, presence, breath, tension, movement. To a horse, your words mean nothing if your body is telling a different story. If you walk into the paddock smiling but tense, the horse won't approach. If you say, "I'm fine," but your shoulders are locked and your hands are cold, the horse will step back. If you try to fake calm, the horse will mirror your inner chaos, not your practiced expression. Because they're not listening to your mouth, they're listening to your nervous system. When you are open, grounded, and authentic, the horse softens. When you are scattered, fearful, or pretending, the horse reacts or retreats. Not because they're judging you, but because as prey animals, they've evolved to read truth in the body. Every flick of the ear, every step forward or back, every change in breathing they notice. Because in a world where we're constantly editing ourselves, filtering emotions, hiding pain, performing confidence, the horse strips all that away, and what's left is who you really are. Sometimes that's uncomfortable, because they'll reflect what you don't want to see, your fear, your resistance, your disconnection. But they also reflect what you forget is there, your softness, your strength, your longing to trust and be trusted. In therapy, this becomes powerful. A horse will reflect a child's anxiety by becoming restless. It will mirror a veteran's inner battle by refusing to connect. It will show a grieving woman her own guardedness by standing just out of reach. And when the person softens, lets go, opens up, the horse responds. It steps closer, lowers its head, breathes slower, and sometimes touches you with the gentlest, most forgiving gesture in the world. A quiet muzzle pressed against your chest. In that way, horses become something rare, a mirror with no judgment, a witness without words, a healer who doesn't need to understand your story, only your presence. And when you stand in front of a horse and see yourself reflected back, not your mask, not your performances, but your being, you begin to see yourself with new eyes, clearer, kinder, real, and that is when the real healing begins. It begins with the thunder of hooves, armor glinting, hearts racing, men riding into the storm of war not alone but with a soul beneath them who knew no armor at all, the war horse. Massive, powerful, silent, and yet not a weapon. A witness. You won't find it in most history books, but hidden in every great battle is the quieter story of a horse that never abandoned his rider. Through cannons, smoke, blood, and fire, the horse kept moving forward, not out of bravery, out of loyalty, out of bond. And when the battle ended, and the warrior could not speak of what he had seen, the horse became the one who understood. Imagine it, a man who had witnessed unspeakable violence, whose nerves were shattered, who couldn't close his eyes without seeing blood, leaning into the neck of a horse who did not ask for details, but stayed, still listening with his body. It was not words that soothed him, it was the rhythm of breath, the weight of muscle, the steady heart beneath the saddle, the eyes that had seen what he had seen, and still looked back at him without fear. Even in peace, the bond endured. Veterans would return home and visit their horses first. Some could not speak of the war to their families, but would sit in the field for hours, resting against the flanks of a horse that had stood beside them through all of it. No medals, no ceremony, just a quiet acknowledgement that healing sometimes arrives. Not through forgettings, but through being remembered. By the one who was there, this is more than history, it is a legacy. Because today, horses are still used in trauma recovery, PTSD therapy, and veteran programs. Why? Because the bond forged in battle is the same bond that heals in silence. A horse does not need to know your story. To stand with you in it, they only need to feel it. And they do, just like they did on the battlefield, just like they still do in the quiet corners of the world where healing lives. Before science had words for it, before therapists named it co-regulation, before we even called it healings, we belonged to each other. Humans and horses, two species, one longing connection. At their core, horses are herd animals. Their survival has always depended on being part of a group. Safety in numbers, comfort in closeness. Knowing someone is beside you, watching your back, matching your rhythm. Doesn't that sound familiar? We're not so different. In a herd, horses communicate constantly, not with sound, but with subtle body cues. A flick of the ear, a glance, a shift in weight, a lowered head, they take turns leading and following. They sync their breath, their stride, even their sleep. They find calm not by being alone, but by being together. And when you step into that space, when you approach a horse with honesty, presence, and awareness, you become part of that herd. At least if you're willing, because horses don't just offer connection, they require it. You can't fake it, you can't rush it, you can't dominate your way into it. You have to earn it. By slowing down, by listening, by being as present as they are. This is why horses are so healing for people who feel disconnected from others. Those with trauma, isolation, or broken trust. In the horse's world, connection is not based on status, language, or appearance. It's based on energy, respect, attunement. You learn to show up with your whole self. You learn to observe before acting. You learn to be together without needing to perform. And when that connection forms, when the horse accepts you into its silent circle of trust, it changes something inside you. You begin to feel safe not just with the horse, but with yourself and eventually with others. Because if a 1,000-pound prey animal, wired for survival, chose to trust you, maybe you can start trusting yourself too. This is the sacred mirror of the herd. It shows you what it means to belong. Not because you did anything impressive, but because you showed up, present, honest, and willing to listen. So yes, horses heal, but not by giving you something you lack. They remind you of something you were born with. Something buried but not broken, your need to connect, your power to be present, your right to belong. It begins with slower steps, a longer breath between movements, a softening of the eyes that once scanned every sound. Your horse is growing old, and with that, something begins to ache. Not just in their joints, but in your chest. There's a quiet grief in watching a horse age, because they never tell you when the shift begins. Just one day, you realize the gallop has faded to a walk. The playful bucks happen less often, and the silence between you has deepened into something sacred. There's dignity in the way an old horse moves, not pride, not a shame, just acceptance. The same horse who once carried you over fields and fences now asks for patience, a slower brush, a longer pause before stepping out of the stall. And if you listen, if you really listen, they're still speaking. But now it's not through movement, it's through presence, because aging horses don't need to prove anything. They've already done it all. Earned your trust, stood beside you through storms, offered you a friendship so constant you forgot it was rare. And now, in this new season, they teach you something harder: how to stay, how to slow down, how to love someone not for what they do, but for who they are, even as they fade. We don't often talk about the grief of losing a horse. But for many, it cuts deeper than words, because horses aren't pets. They're partners, witnesses, keepers of memory. They remember the first time you were brave. They were there the day you broke down. They stood beside you when you had no one else. Not because they had to, but because that's what they do. Sometimes you'll sit with them in the field, your hand resting on their withers, the breeze carrying nothing but the sound of birds and breath. And you'll know it's coming, the goodbye, but horses don't fear death like we do. They don't resist it. They don't pretend it isn't near. They simply exist in each moment. Until they don't. And when that moment arrives, they look to you not for rescue, but for reassurance, not to be saved, but to be seen until the very end. In their passing, something inside you breaks, but something else is revealed. A deeper kind of strength, a quieter kind of love, the understanding that grief is just the shadow side of devotion. And that morning is proof you really lived. And really loved. To every person who has held a horse through its final days, who whispered thank you through tears, who stayed in the pasture just a little longer after they were gone, your grief is holy. Because love like that doesn't end, it transforms. And somewhere in a field not far from memory, that horse is still with you, still watching, still saying in their quiet, wordless way, "You were my herd." We've all seen it. A horse standing quietly, head low, eyelids heavy. Or lying down, something rare, something sacred. With legs stretched out, chest rising and falling like a tide. Suddenly, a flick of the ear, a twitch of the lip, a gentle kick from a sleeping leg. And we wonder, are they dreaming? Science has something to say. Horses do enter REM sleep, the deep sleep phase where dreaming occurs. But unlike humans, horses can't reach REM standing up. To do so, they must lie down or lean heavily against something supportive, because REM sleep paralyzes the body. And for a prey animal, that level of vulnerability is a profound act of trust. So when a horse lays down and twitches in sleep, they are not only resting, they are surrendering to safety, to you, to the moment. What happens at that moment? Their brain waves mirror ours during dreams. They flicker and pulse with electrical activity. Memory gets sorted, emotion is processed, experience becomes a story, and though we can't ask them, the way they move in sleep, their ears, their lips, their legs, tells us that they are reliving something. Running, failing, remembering, so what do they dream about maybe? About you, the scent of your coat, the feel of your hands, the sound of your voice when you laughed or cried or said goodbye for the night. Horses remember more than we realize. They remember patterns, tone, emotion, so when they close their eyes, perhaps they go back to the days that mattered most. Not because of what happened, but because of who they were with. In some cultures, horses are said to walk between worlds. Messengers, dreamers, carriers of the soul. And maybe when they sleep, they return to that other place. The place before words, the place of wind and sky, the place they were born from. There's something deeply healing about watching a horse sleep. It softens us, it humbles us, because in that moment this giant, powerful being is completely still, completely vulnerable, completely real. And if you're lucky enough to be beside them, to share that stillness, to feel the weight of their trust, you might find yourself breathing slower too. Sinking, letting go, dreaming, maybe together. They're built to sleep on their feet. That's what we've always heard, and yes, it's true. The horse's body is a marvel of biological design, thanks to something called the stay apparatus. They can lock their legs in place, relax their muscles, and lightly doze without collapsing. It's one of nature's brilliant solutions for a prey animal. Rest without becoming vulnerable. But what most people don't know is that this system has limits, and when those limits are pushed, when exhaustion outweighs instinct, a horse can fall. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's sudden, shocking, and dangerous. One moment they're swaying gently. The next, their knees buckle, their body lurches, and gravity takes over. This isn't just a stumble, it's a sign that something is very wrong. The most common cause, sleep deprivation. Despite their ability to rest while standing, horses still need deep sleep, the kind that only happens when they lie down. And if a horse doesn't feel safe enough to do that, they simply won't. Days can pass, then weeks. And all the while, their body keeps asking for REM sleep. That vital restorative phase when the brain resets and heals. Eventually, the need becomes too great. Their body shuts down even if they're still standing. This is when collapse can occur. Suddenly, unpredictably, dangerously, in barns, in paddocks, even in the middle of grooming or feeding. So what causes this chronic unrest? A new environment. A poorly designed stall. Lack of soft ground to lie on. Physical pain that makes lying down too difficult. A change in herd dynamics. Or simply fear. Fear of predators, fear of falling and not being able to rise. Fear that no one will be there if they do. There are warning signs if you know what to look for: repeated knee buckling, unusual swaying, wounds on the front knees or face from falls, sudden drops in energy, depression or mood changes. It's easy to miss, especially if the horse appears calm. But inside, their system is screaming for rest. As humans, we sometimes envy how effortlessly horses stand and doze, but we forget what that posture costs them: to never truly let go, to always keep one eye on the world. It's survival, not peace. So when they finally do lie down, when they stretch out and let the earth carry their weight, it's not just a sleep, it's trust embodied. Some horses, especially older ones, may collapse from weakness in their limbs. Others may suffer from narcolepsy or fainting disorders, but no matter the cause, a horse falling asleep and hitting the ground is never normal. It's not laziness, it's not clumsiness. It's a message, and it means I need help. I need space, I need comfort, I need safety. So how do we help? Provide soft bedding or pasture space. Ensure they have social support, herd mates they trust. Minimize stress and noise in sleeping areas. Address physical pain or injuries. Watch, listen, respond. Because when you make a horse feel safe enough to lie down, to close their eyes, to let go, you are doing more than providing comfort. You are restoring something sacred. You are saying, you don't have to be. And when a horse hears that, not in words, but in care, something shifts: the body size, the knees unlock, the breath deepens, and finally, they sleep. It's quiet now, a golden hush in the barn, a soft rustle of straw. The gentle rhythm of a horse's breath, slow, deep, unguarded. This isn't just sleep. This is trust in motion. There is something almost spiritual about watching a horse rest. A being of muscle and movement, of wild instinct and ancient memory, has chosen to be still, to be vulnerable, to let go, and not in isolation, but in your presence. That matters, because a horse does not surrender easily. Rest for them is not a luxury, it's a risk. In the wild, stillness could cost them their life. A second too slow and danger strikes. So even now, in stalls and paddocks and pastures, somewhere inside them, they still carry that alertness. And when they don't, when they let it fall away, it's because they trust you more than they fear. It's easy to miss this gift. We are fast creatures, we humans. We speak in urgency, we move in noise, we carry our stress like armor. But a horse invites something else: stillness, presence, silence, not as absence but as offering. When we sit with a sleeping horse, we don't just witness calm, we absorb it, we begin to mirror it. Our own nervous system softens. Our shoulders fall, our mind, so used to racing ahead, finally settles. It's in these moments that the deepest healing happens. Not through action but through surrender. Not by doing but by being. The horse leads, we follow. Not on reins or ropes but on breath, on trust, on the rhythm of rest. Have you ever cried beside a sleeping horse? Not because of anything they did, but because in their stillness you finally felt something. Something buried, something unspoken. That's what they give us, a mirror for the parts of ourselves we rush past, a permission slip to feel, to stop. There are lessons here, lessons we often forget, that safety is felt, not spoken, that healing isn't loud. That presence is more powerful than pressure, that silence can say everything. Horses teach us to value being overdoing, to notice the breath, the blink, the soft sigh. They remind us that strength isn't just about force, it's about letting go, about choosing vulnerability, and trusting that we won't be hurt for it. So the next time you see a horse asleep, whether standing tall or curled on the ground, pause, don't rush, don't interrupt, watch, listen, learn. Because in that moment, you're witnessing something rare, a sacred ritual of surrender. And if they trust you enough to do it near you, then maybe, just maybe, you've been healing too. And so we end not with a gallop, but with a still breath and a grateful heart. May we learn to rest as horses do, when it is safe, when it is quiet, and when the soul is ready. Because in the end, the deepest kind of healing doesn't always run. Sometimes it sleeps. Thank you for joining me here on Horse Sense, where every breath, hoofbeat, and flick of a tail brings us closer to the quiet wisdom horses carry. If this story stirred something in you, A memory, a thought, or simply a moment of stillness. Let it stay with you. Until next time, take care. And listen closely, the horses are always speaking.